you can basically put in like 500 pages of medical records and history into the system. You're just uploading it. In less than 5 minutes, you get a medical summary that is incredible with a chronology in 5 minutes. It would take a firm, 3 full days from a paralegal to do. Now you do it in 5 minutes. And the demand comes out, editable, customizable demand comes out in 5 minutes. So nobody should have a demand backlog anymore. It's a thing of the past. It's like having invoice backlog. Because if you don't send the demand out, you don't get an offer, you don't have a settlement. It's pretty straightforward. So if you want cash flow, you need to get rid of your demands.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hamid Kohan. I'm the CEO of lawpractice.ai, and I'm happy to have a great guest here, Steve Fretzin. He's a veteran in this industry, and I'm glad to have him on our conversation and talk about how the AI is impacting the legal industry and attorneys and operations and so forth. I think we both have a bit of experience working with the law firms in setting up, scaling, guiding, coaching, variety of different things. And I think this AI is going to make a major impact. I think, in my view, is probably the most major impact that the law industry has seen is going to be from AI. We went from the old days of not even having a CRM to manage the case or handle the clients and so forth. And they thought that was a big change. Compared to this, that was a walk in the park. So Steve, thanks for joining us. So give us a little bit of a background about yourself, and then we can start discussing the AI situation.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on your show. I am not an attorney, so I always like to start off by letting people know I may be pretending to be one on TV, but I'm not actually an attorney. I got pulled kicking and screaming into this industry in the recession of 2008 and 9 as a sales coach and as a sales trainer for entrepreneurs who's worked in over 50 industries. And what I didn't know at the time, even having a lawyer father, was the lack of knowledge, information, and skills that lawyers are missing in growing a law practice. So I got into this with the very sales-free methodology of how I teach lawyers how to grow their law practices without selling, pitching, or convincing. And it just was a love fest from the very start. And after about 16 months of working with lawyers, I said, you know what, enough with the financial planners and the data security companies and all this stuff. I'm going to focus on an industry that desperately needs my help, and that's legal. And so I've been doing that for about 17 years and have watched a lot of, like you were saying earlier, like it's a slow moving train with technology and the things that have been put forth. And there's been a lot of advancements, but nothing comes close to what we've seen even in the last 6 months with AI.
Right. Absolutely. I think I went through the same process as you did, not as long as you have been doing it. And so when I started doing, I pretty much experienced the same thing. I used to say, if you leave the attorneys alone, they're still wearing their pagers, waiting at the fax machine for the next thing to come in, and they wouldn't move. So it's been a big change since, but that's how things are started. So in your perspective, working with all this law firm, with seeing variety of different, migrations and changes, what is your perspective of what's going on with the AI in the legal industry and what to watch out for? Because I know almost everybody's confused about it and not certain. So what's your take on it?
It's actually interesting. I find it similar to business development in that there's about 10% of the legal population lawyers that are hungry and interested in learning and executing on business development and client development and growing business and building their brand and doing the things that you and I do naturally. And so there's 90% that just want to hang back and do the work and get through their day and get home to their kids or whatever it might be. And I feel like AI might be similar. There's 10% that are like, holy mackerel, this is going to be the greatest thing and the craziest thing that's ever happened in our world. And I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to leverage it. I'm going to try to figure out how to get ahead of everybody else. Then there's 90% that are just hanging back, watching it all happen. And I'm not suggesting that that's wrong. I think that some people like to just see how things shake out, risk-averse people and people that don't want to be the early adopters or get into trouble with things. And they're just hanging back. But then there's folks like you and others that are just saying, hey, we better get in early. We better create something and start building businesses while we're able to use these tools and get business.
This is the first time that I actually don't blame them, because in the past, when I was doing a big migration from old CRMs or old automation tools and telling them, look, you need to pick one. It was pretty straightforward. You pick CaseFear, FileOne, Clear, Litify, and you sort of go. And it's like you talk to 4 reps, you make a decision, you start implementing. Whoever was resisting at the time was kind of like that. That was difficult, but it was the simplest selection to add to your practice. But today, in the beginning, I had the same methodology. But now, when every single day, like 10 AI tools pops up for attorneys to use, I don't blame them, because you have to devote your full time to just figure this stuff out and see which one is really effective, which one is not, which one is just a fluff. They put an AI in front of everything. They call it AI nowadays. Like my dry cleaner is going to be an AI dry cleaner pretty soon, because that's the trend to just say AI in front of washing the clothes. When we started Law Practice AI, because I'm also a CEO of a different company, LegalSoft, which provides visual staffing to 1,000 law firms nationwide. So we have a very in with this 1,000 law firms that are under our umbrella, and I saw the confusion. So we did the Law Practice AI as what we call it, the operating system AI for the firm, because you need to bring in basically we have to do the work for them, because they're not going to be able to. What the work is to identify what you need, identify all the AIs that applies to what you need, sort them out, pick the best, most easy to use, reliable long-term company, and then bring them to the box and say, I put them in the box, use it, and I will keep up to make sure we're always up to date with the stuff. So it's going to be like an operating system that is all AI for every tool that a firm needs. Starting from client generations and a marketing support, to intake and document collection, to drafting your contracts, demands, and all of that, all the way to litigation support, where you get to basically pick a jury, summarize mediations and depositions and so forth. And we're driven to create that because we cannot even keep up on. We have 20 AI engineers and a whole bunch of support staff, and it's still difficult to just figure it out for the legal industry. So that has been our mission that we've been on for a couple of years.
Yeah. The problem is, if you're an early adopter, that's normally a great thing and you can get ahead of everybody else, but things are moving so fast. Like I talked to a lawyer last week who's got a new AI for intake, and he doesn't have a marketing plan, doesn't have a business plan. He's got a guy who's a software person who's helping him do it. And it's like, how are you going to build this out? And by the time you figure out how to build it and scale it and make it anything good, the AI may be so much better in 6 months that everything you just worked on might be in the rearview mirror. So it's challenging. It's challenging to kind of, and I agree, I want intake. I want to buy from this person. And then again, is that even going to be relevant for me in my business in 6 months?
Exactly. And who's going to keep up with it? Because it's a very fast moving target. I come from a tech industry. So I spent my first 20 years of career in Silicon Valley. I was there when we invented internet there and the cell phones and the laptop. So I gone through those migration of a tech. I worked for tech companies for 20 plus years. And everybody nowadays thinks that it's very easy to create an AI platform or an app or this and that. They have no idea how much involvement it has lifetime. You look at people like Google and Microsoft, the giants, you would think they develop something and they're done with it and they're just collecting money. This not. They keep hiring thousands of more engineers to do the same thing, to keep up. Most of it is to keep up with the changes and technologies. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend anybody out there try this at home. You got to let the guys do what they're supposed to do. In your conversations with your firms, what are the top 3 areas that you focus on? Like scalability, marketing, technology. What are your top 3?
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm someone who teaches lawyers how to specialize and how to niche down and how to really focus on a particular group and don't try to be everything to everyone. And so I've been very good at doing this and sort of being a role model myself, in that I only work with individual lawyers. Many of them are managing partners of law firms, but individual lawyers, and I only do business development. Now, does that leak into time management and marketing and branding and sometimes technology and operations? Yeah, it leaks into it a little bit, but I'm really trying to focus on being the business development guy for lawyers around the world that are ambitious and hungry to grow. And so I have to develop relationships with people like you, Hamid, and others, so that I can refer my clients to, the technology, the operations, the leadership, whatever it is that they need to ensure they're getting the scalability that they need. But I'm good at all of it. But I know, like, in my heart, what I love and am passionate about is watching someone double and triple their book of business and become a rainmaker that's well regarded in the industry.
Right, exactly, because it is challenging and they don't necessarily have the knowledge, experience. I have two kids in law school. One of them just finished Vanderbilt Law School. The other one, thank you. The other one is finishing up at Pepperdine. And I see exactly, because I'm very involved in it, that what they teach them. They absolutely don't teach them nothing about the business whatsoever. No. I mean, they're just like, they can't even open up a bank account. I mean, that bad, right? And then you throw them into this practice. And probably the easiest part is the legal, that they train them at least in some level. But the rest of them, they're clueless because they never been taught and they never worked in it. Even when they do their internship, I know my son did like 2 internships. They throw him into a case to do discovery or, help with litigation. It has nothing to do with businesses still. They don't know how the stuff was created, what's the workflow process, what's the departments and the businesses, and what's the cost of client acquisition. What? Client acquisition? I mean, don't they just walk into the door?
I mean, there is a conspiracy theory that might be more than that big law really doesn't want law schools to teach them entrepreneurship and the soft skills of growth, because how are they going to crank out, 60 hours a week for big law if they have the mindset or the idea that they should be doing other things and working towards their own benefit? It doesn't benefit big law to have people, working for themselves or for others.
Exactly. Yeah, that's always been, to me, the case, that they want them to be so focused. Like the old days, I went to engineering school. I went to engineering school in California. That was my first degree. Then I got my MBA and then I moved on. Is like in engineering school was the same thing. It was just, they show you how to program in multiple languages, and they don't care how this thing ends up to be a business, be a project or whatever. You just sit and code.
Yeah.
So we went to the field, and that's why in Silicon Valley was such a big boom, because they got all this resource of people coming and coding, and then you got a whole new MBA folks from Stanford and Berkeley and so forth, that they made it into a business. Or even some college drop-offs made it a good business. But with the legal industry, when I was doing something similar to what you're doing, I was doing coaching, consulting, one-on-ones, exactly the same patterns that you showed. I stopped doing that a few years ago. But it was 2 challenges that I saw every single time with every practice type. Was 2 challenges. Staffing. I can't find qualified, reliable, affordable staff. So that's why I'm not growing. And then that's when I went into virtual staffing and solved that with LegalSoft. We have like 3,000 or 4,000 visual staff actually working within the firms, because I had to go global. I couldn't find them local, especially in LA. We're based in LA. God help you if you want to get some affordable, reliable resources in LA. And these folks globally are actually grateful to have a job, which is amazing. It's very refreshing in LA. So that's how we solved that problem. So I have law firms who have anywhere from 5 to 100 virtual legal staff from us that work and scale the firm. Then the next challenge was, okay, you got all of these clients, you got all of this staff now. You need a lot of technology and automation to manage it and, scale it again. So that's when we went to lawpractice.ai to be able to say, okay, I got the staffing done. If I can just do the technology right too, all they need to do is lawyering. So we can handle the rest of it. You went to school to be a lawyer. So now it gives you opportunity to go do lawyering while we operate, or we show you how to operate the effective growing law firm.
Yeah. Well, the big challenge is that lawyers aren't learning these skills, And it becomes very clear when I speak to, practice management classes in law schools that I speak with, and even, new lawyers coming out that attend some of my workshops, that they're ill prepared for the world and for growing their own law practice, let alone building law practice or law firm of their own. So we're all doing our part. And a huge part of, by the way, what I try to do is work with lawyers on time management and delegation. So any
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
legal tech, AI, or VA, anything, like, I've become a student of the game. So just to give you an idea, I don't have any paper anywhere near me. There's not a scrap of paper other than my book over here around me. I have no unopened emails in my inbox. Every day I'm at a zero inbox. I'm very, very organized now, and I'm not built that way, but I'm using
Right.
auto schedulers. I'm using Lawmatics as a software to help me bring in contracts and get all. I take in almost, now I just agreed to take a check, but I have no checks. Like, everything is through ACH and credit cards. So I've streamlined my business, and I'm really focused on helping lawyers figure out how to do less of the admin, less of the marketing, less of the $15 to $50 an hour stuff, and focus on the
Sure.
high level work, and business development being one of those high level, high ROI payoffs if they can get, to the point where they're doing it at a good level.
Exactly. Steve, there's a huge shortage and the need of folks like yourself being connected with these firms. Because, like, I started like you, and now, I'm interacting with the thousands of law firms, so I have to do that. But a lot of them still come to me and wanting me to consult, and I don't do that anymore. But I think there is not a great exposure to from these law firms to folks like you that they need, because they don't have the right COO, they don't have the right CFO or whatever. And I think eventually there is got to be a place where attorneys can go and find people like yourself who have the scaling organizational skill that can help them out implement things, because they don't know what the roadmap is, they don't know the implementation process, and honestly they haven't been trained or interested to do that. They do it out of necessity. But if somebody comes up with a way where can connect Steve to this 100 firms that I know that they needed.
I think you answered your own question. You can start introducing me to the law firms that you work with as a value add for them. And
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely do that, because, that system, you would think that there is a hub somewhere where they can go and pick, consultants for the law firm, just like you do go pick up like a remote attorneys or, a peer me for the things. But I think that's also a good idea to put a lot of consultants in place. And I think within our practice AI solution, where we're creating a portal, I think that could be definitely a section for resources to introduce folks like yourself who are more familiar with the practice and technologies and AI, for our clients to pick and say, look, I want to set up a consultation with Steve, and then get introduced that way. I think that's definitely a path I'm going to introduce to our team to create and present folks like you, because implementation to me is more important than the actual idea.
Yeah.
Ideas, like in Silicon Valley mentality, is a dime a dozen. Everybody can open up a law firm. I mean, literally anybody can open up a firm. By the way, I have a law firm myself in Arizona as a non-attorney law
Oh, there you
firm.
go.
So that proves the point that anybody can have own a law firm. But effectively growing it, scaling it, making it profitable is not simple.
No.
So it takes people like you or other folks to be able to set it up to grow it.
And it's
that way.
important to also validate the people that you're talking to as resources. So if somebody, thinks of me as the expert, that's great. But I could also be not an expert. I could just hang a shingle and just say I am. And so what are we doing to validate that the virtual assistant program that you're running is top notch, or that I'm a sales coach that works with lawyers and would help a lawyer grow significant business? I think we have to think about, how are we validating? Look at their website, talk with other people that have used that resource before. what testimonials are out there. Similar to if I'm going to a restaurant, I don't just show up at a restaurant, right? I look online, I look at their reviews, I look at their menu. I want to understand and validate that the money I'm about to spend on a restaurant, which might be significantly lower than a VA or AI or me.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but there's a vetting process that needs to happen, because I think that's where lawyers get confused and tricked and get upset, is that there's all these people selling stuff to them, and not all of them are created equal as it relates to actual value and ROI and potential to really help them grow.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. When we do any kind of a marketing, we go to a lot of conferences, we exhibit at a lot of places and so forth. We always telling them, I don't need to tell you, here's a 5 firms, similar size and practice types in your state. Go talk to them and see how they did it, how effective it was for them. I don't need to prove it. We already have enough proof of concept, which is go talk to these 5 attorneys, ask them how did it work for them. If you essentially to me, let your reputation and services speak for themselves. So I don't have to promise you anything or pitch you anything. You go talk to 5 attorneys, and most of our attorneys are very open to talk to their peers about their experiences. So that's been sort of our secret sauce, and not try to pitch and convince people to do things. We're just like order processing, if anything.
Yeah, right. Well, if you've got people that have their brand and that have a great service that people want, they'll just line up to buy. And when people have to pitch and sell and convince, that's typically a sign of, in mind, it's a sign of weakness and desperation. So we need to have not only building up a great brand for ourselves, but we also need to make sure that we've got client advocates out there that are talking about us and sharing their experiences and giving us LinkedIn reviews and Amazon reviews and whatever it is, that podcast reviews, to help, again, continue to validate that this is real.
Sure. No, absolutely. I would definitely invite you to work with our team to become more connected into our network of attorneys, both on the Law Practice AI, which is the technology trend of it, and the virtual staffing and the LegalSoft. I think our clients will benefit greatly with a combination of network of resources that talks about virtual staffing, technologies, consulting, and a structure that, I think every successful attorney needs people like yourself next to them to navigate and tell them and show them where to go, how to do it, what kind of a KPI. When we start talking KPIs with attorneys, they were like, "Oh, what's that? What do you mean?" Well, I don't know. I pay for something. It's just like if I have investment somewhere, I want my financial advisor to tell me what should I expect 5 years from now. It's the same thing. So they understand that part of it. So I think that would be very beneficial. How much exposure have you had yourself with implementing AI in the industry?
Well, let me.
I know it's all new.
Yeah, let me share something really interesting. So I've done over 500 podcast episodes, and I had an epiphany, I don't know, 6 months ago, that I've been repurposing my podcast audio, video. I've created these things called blogcasts, which is taking the transcript, which can be 20 pages long, and truncating it down into an actual article that can be published, right? And it hit me that I've already published 4 books. They've all been on my own time and my own effort. What if I use AI and an editor and myself to take these transcripts that are just sitting on the server somewhere and create chapters and put them into a book of what the 101 top rainmakers' secrets and tips are for growing a successful law practice? And that's the book that you see behind me. And it's a #1 seller on Amazon right now in a couple different categories in legal. But essentially, it's like, hey, every interview I conduct, my job is to pull 3, 4, 5, 6 great ideas out of these rainmakers. Right. And then if somebody doesn't listen to podcasts, then it's gone. So why not put it in a book where it's all summarized? So I have a very strong relationship with AI because it helped me literally publish my most recent book.
I see. Great. So I think a combination of what we provide and what you provide can really be very effective to scale a firm and teach your attorneys the pathway to get there with a lot of expertise. And the good thing about what we do and you do is that we have a lot of case studies. It's not like we never seen this one before. It's always like, oh, I deal with at least 50 other firms had the exact same problem as you do. And the recipe is right here, and you can just take the recipe and do it. But I think with your knowledge base and your contact, your previous client base, introducing this AI, it just adds one more chapter to your book and to your recipe that, okay, now we need to use AI to scale.
Yeah.
Like this demand writing program that we have just recently released, you can basically put in like 500 pages of medical records and history into the system. You're just uploading it. In less than 5 minutes, you get a medical summary that is incredible with a chronology in 5 minutes. It would take a firm, 3 full days from a paralegal to do. Now you do it in 5 minutes. And the demand comes out, editable, customizable demand comes out in 5 minutes. So nobody should have a demand backlog anymore. It's a thing of the past. It's like having invoice backlog. Because if you don't send the demand out, you don't get an offer, you don't have a settlement. It's pretty straightforward. So if you want cash flow, you need to get rid of your demands and not hold on to them.
Yeah, I interviewed some interesting guys on my podcast that have a program called Postalize. And essentially it's solving the problem of, I have 1,000 contacts of clients and lawyers and strategic partners and people that I need to be in constant touch with. And this program uses AI to scour the internet and find what would connect me with those people, and then automatically create an email that I can either adjust or that I can just hit send. So let's say, for example, I know that you're into padel. Okay, it's a newer sport, but it's out there. Okay, and I know that you're a big fan of it. And I put that into my AI as something about you. And then sure enough, I'm getting an email that says, hey, a new padel just opened up in LA. It's membership is, and so you're the first to get notified that this new thing opened up in your neighborhood, and it came from me. Right. So right. How am I doing helping you, connect on LinkedIn, helping you better, find content and connect and stay in touch and in front of clients? These are big hangups and sort of handicaps that lawyers have that AI can solve. And so Postalize is working towards that.
No, absolutely. I think all of those knowledge base that you were just talking about is going to be an asset to be able to offer to our network and say, look, putting your podcast as AI related into the platform so people can actually go to one place and listen to 5 people like yourself at their point of view of what they need to do with the technology, what they need to do with the workflow. And I think that becomes a big asset. There's not a place that I know of that gives the attorneys and a focus mastermind connection. So they can pick and choose. I mean, they got to go basically to YouTube because all this stuff is on YouTube. And every time my son is very big on learning out of a YouTube stuff. And he shows me at least an hour a night of YouTube content that has to do with the law practice or changes in law. But that shouldn't be a YouTube, should be a portal.
But it's effective. So let me just bring up something else because I think it's important. There are a lot of lawyers right now who are relying on Google to get all their business, right? They're paying exorbitant money on pay-per-click. They've spent, years doing SEO to get ranked. And now we're not using Google, are we? We're leaning towards asking ChatGPT to help answer a question, help find us a vendor. I mean, I have an ankle injury in Chicago, in the North Shore of Chicago. This is what happened, and find me the best lawyer. And it's not going to give me 100 lawyers to talk to on 12 pages. It's going to give me the ankle specialist that's in the North Shore of Chicago, and that's who's going to end up getting my call. And I just worry about these lawyers who are fully dependent on certain, internet-based business, lead generation services like Google.
On that sentence, one of the AI tools that we're building, because we deal with a lot of firms spending probably in my network over $100 million a month on ad spend, but they haven't figured out targeting, retargeting, and demographic analysis and the patterns and so forth. So they're just going to Meta and just blast it. And they don't know what works, what doesn't work, what changes has happened. So all of a sudden, the cost of client acquisition doubles, and they have no idea why. Well, because the message needs to be changed. The the video you're producing is not engaging, whatever. Is a lot of those things that I think the AI, we're working on it right now. AI is going to be able to tell you, Steve, you need to create an ad campaign like this, with this kind of a message, with this kind of graphic, with this kind of a video, and serve it to this specific target demographic to get the most value from your dollar. Nobody does that. It's like, just give it a try, kind of a thing, and spend millions of dollars.
Well, it's interesting. The two things that I'm using ChatGPT for as well is, number one is asking it questions about my business and trying to get better advice. I mean, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle for you and for I, right? We're in the middle of our businesses. It's hard to sometimes see, the paths that we need to take sometimes. So asking ChatGPT to say, hey, you're a marketing genius. Here's a bunch of prompts that I'd like to ask you to help figure out, what I should be doing that I'm not doing. Look at the internet, look at everything I've done, the books, the articles, the podcast, everything, and tell me what I'm missing or how I can better leverage it. What questions should you be asking me that will help, clarify what I'm looking for, because I'd like some advice and I'd like you to help me implement it as well. And then you just get this, 3 or 4 pages back of absolutely brilliant response to what you're asking. And you don't have to do everything that minute, but it'll help you figure out how to execute on it. And as you mentioned earlier, that's the beast, right? It's execution. So I just think that there's lawyers and there's professionals that can really leverage it, not just to, find a local barber or to answer a technology question, but to actually help them internally build, figure out how do I do better with my business?
Yeah, exactly. Great. Thanks, Steve. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure we can do this again and a more deeper topic. We can pick a specific topic and just sort of dig into more to it. And I will have my team, contact you to put you in our network so we can bring more ears and eyes to what you have to offer. And please do the same. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.